Welcome to the 1000 Comics Podcast. It's your host, Matt Heath. How you doing, folks? Man, this is a strange episode. Well, first of all, I got a great guest on the show. Anya Jones. She runs a open mic out in Brooklyn called The Tiny Cupboard. She has a website called lifeofanya.com, which, she was running throughout the pandemic. The fuzz wanted her to shut it down, man. Lifeofanya.com. Check that out if you're an aspiring comic and you're looking for open mic spots and all sorts of places you can go do comedy all over the city. It's great. More about Anya in a minute. Today I am going to perform the last show of my 20s, man. I'm still in my 20s. I'm going to turn 30 in a few days. This is the last weekend spot I'm booked for. The rest of the stuff I'm probably going to be doing is Mike, but this is the last show over at Broadway Comedy Club. This is me. Is it defining to do a show at Broadway Comedy Club? I mean, I did the club years back, so I guess that was defining, but I think it really speaks to who I am as a comic, right? This is the last show of my 20s. This is tonight. I mean, next week I'm going to be at Broadway Comedy Club at 10 o'clock on Friday. But I'll be 30. It's going to be a different me. It's going to be a 30-year-old me. I'm Matt in his 20s right now. This might be the last time you get to talk to him. Maybe I'll record another monologue in the next couple days, but I'm not sure about that yet because tonight's the last show. This is the last show of my 20s. Man, as of right now, 1000 Comics Podcast is between sponsors. Let's do our Buddhist wisdom for the day instead of a sponsorship. Maybe it'll manifest more sponsors. Hey, if you'd like to sponsor the show, it's $100 an ad read. Hit me up. You can Venmo me at ThankYouMaskedMan or send me an email at matthewheath.saga@gmail.com. But right now, the Buddhist wisdom for the day is, don't you love the ambient sounds of New York? If you are always virtuous, temptation will never trouble you. And the fragrant scent of your good deeds will even reach the gods. Huh. So maybe just do good deeds, I guess? Do good deeds, guys. I don't know. Hey, this is a hell of an interview I did with Anya Jones. Check it out. All right, welcome to the 1000 Comics Podcast. It's your host, Matt Heath. I'm sitting here with my guest, Anya Jones.
Hi, it's nice to be here.
Did I say your name wrong?
No, my glasses fell off my head.
Your glasses did fall off your head.
And that's never going to translate properly, and nobody will get that.
That's fine. Visual jokes on an audio podcast always go well, but just because it'll just be a moment for them to listen. I'm also sitting here with my trusted sidekick, Joe Fox.
Hey, thanks for having me, bud.
Yeah, now that I'm a big city podcaster here in the NYC, I have a sidekick now. So that's just how it is from now on.
Nice.
You know?
I mostly get drinks. Yeah.
He gets
whatever he needs.
He gets the beers.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes. Okay, so Anya Jones.
Yeah.
So it was. Do you know why I was worried I messed up your name, or it was something? I feel like there was something with names. Like you have like a thing with names because you're like the only open mic host I know that does just the first name when they introduce people. What's the deal with that?
The deal with that is that, well, the other Matt has never given me his last name.
Right.
So a lot of people just don't give them.
Right.
But other than that...
But you're not even looking to ask for the last name. No? Yeah?
I kind of take whatever you give me.
Yeah.
Whatever people say, that's what I write down.
Right.
And then also, if it's very obvious who it is that's going up, I just don't want to do the extra work of trying to figure out how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
It's not your job to dig.
I thought it was like a Russian thing, like you don't want to see like names on a list.
No.
Like
that's very funny. No, that's not it. That's very funny though.
That's seriously what I thought it was.
That's very funny.
Well, just to give a little context for any listeners out there, you host the Tiny Cupboard open mic.
Yeah.
And
6 days a week.
6 days a week.
Oh, it's too many. It's so much. I've been doing it.
This is your pitch for people to come out to it? You're like, it's too many.
That's the other thing is like a lot of people were showing up, so I kind of had to stop advertising it just for it to come back down to a reasonable amount of people to sign up.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to say is I'm in the perfect spot of I have something to offer and I don't need to sell it because it's so in demand that
right.
I can kind of just say, if you don't want to come, don't. If you're not going to be exactly who I want you to be in the room, don't come.
But I'm sure like the Brooklynite is that how you Brooklynite?
I'm the wrong guy to ask.
Brooklynite?
Well, how are you going to use it?
The Brooklynites that hang out within your club would like to see Connecticut comics come down and do the mic.
Yeah, always. Look, I mean, it really is just about like, are you an interesting person for us to listen to or not? And even if you're not, are you kind of like, are you fun to have in the room?
Mm-hmm.
Are you able to sit well?
Well,
it's not a high bar.
That is like a thing with comics. Like, some of them are funny on stage, but unbearable to be around.
That's true.
You know?
That's true. Those people usually don't stick around the mic.
Yeah.
They come, but I think there's like a dynamic that happens where they kind of see that they're not the like
buddy.
Did you want a beer? I'm sorry.
Sure. Yeah. It's like, oh no, thank you. Like, for example, a lot of the like cool bad boys of comedy of New York try to come to the mic, and some of them are like perfectly at home, but then some of them will come and like they'll refuse the feedback.
Yeah, they'll just cut.
But they also give a lot of feedback, and it's like sometimes that doesn't mean anything, but sometimes you can really tell that there's like there's nothing you guys have to teach me, and I could teach you a few things.
Well, let's pause for a second because the feedback is like something that's kind of unique. This is the first time I've ever seen like an open, because it's almost like more of a workshop than a mic in a way.
That's what it's called, yeah.
Yes.
Workshop mic.
Workshop mic. So I don't know. At first, I was, because I've come to your mic twice now, I was kind of opposed to the idea. Like,
People usually are, yeah.
But the way I see you run it and the way the people are there, like, everybody's so positive that it's like, why not?
I was shocked by, like, how positive people were.
Yeah.
Especially when some people were saying certain things, and I was like, oh, this is like,
yeah.
You know, this is a cool space. You can just kind of say what you want and just hear what people have to, like, think about it. Because I had, like, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I had, like, a pretty strong pause when people started giving feedback, so I was like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, this is fucking cool. It's a workshop.
Yeah.
Yeah. It also would have helped if I heard the word workshop before I went in.
Right.
Because I was just like, what is happening right now?
But it's probably good that it's a workshop because there's really no audience that walk in. A lot of mics will have an audience that will kind of like meander in. There's really not a chance of that.
That's not what that room is.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I find that the trick to that mic is that people listen really attentively when they know their opinion on it might matter in a second.
Right.
So people tend to give really positive feedback. I don't know if that's exactly why, but that is why people pay really good attention at the mic, so I think it's a really captive crowd. Why people are supportive, I think it's just like, I don't know. I've never even seen someone try to like put someone down. I've never even seen that happen at the mic. And there's been bad feedback. Like, you shouldn't do this stuff anymore. This stuff doesn't work for you.
Yeah.
But it's just, I don't know. People are just more mature than I thought they were, I guess.
The one thing that I could kind of see how it could be like counter productive a little bit. It's like it's jokes are meant to be tight, and I feel like a lot of people's feedback are like adding to jokes where it's like
Yeah.
people like trimming the fat is more important, I think, than
Yes, I agree if you have something good in the first place.
Yeah.
But a lot of the feedback is meant to be like, this is a premise, I don't know what the punchline is. And so a lot of the feedback is, here's a punchline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate.
Yeah.
And it's cool because a lot of the people at your mic there are like brand new comics too, and it's like I didn't even notice that yesterday, but today I was like, oh, this guy's been on stage 3 times. This girl's been on stage 3 times.
That is actually something that keeps happening that I don't know, like, I think I make people too comfortable.
Yeah, maybe you're like some kind of like comedy godmother or something.
Oh my god, I know that's like what people cast me as always is like, like a comfortable woman, and
This girl Whitney Allen, who I just had on the podcast, just started doing comedy in Connecticut.
Yeah.
Told me today that one of her first times on stage, if not the first, was at your mic.
Yeah, I get everybody's first time. I mean, it's fine. I would prefer the good old days of when it was just comics.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like nice back then because you would get someone do their first time maybe like once every 5 mics.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh my god, it's his first time, dude. Like, that's crazy. Like, you're going to remember this. Like, it became very fraternal. But now it's really old hat. It's fucking 3 people every mic. This is my first time. I just moved to New York.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I don't know. You feel like a gatekeeper by any means now. like every new comic's coming through you.
I definitely put in a lot of effort to be welcoming, and it takes a lot. Like, I'm drained at the end of the day, and I can't stop, which I think is something that like a lot of women I think need to deal with. Is very giving, very nurturing.
Well,
and you need to stop that shit.
Doesn't I mean, comedy is like usually done out when it's dark out. It's like you running a mic that's at 3:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And they say that public speaking is actually one of the most physically exhausting jobs one can have. So
it is, because it's the brain working overtime.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like when you're in a new city, you burn like, it's some like crazy amount. Like your brain burns like 40% more calories.
So stimulated, yeah.
Just because, you're in a new, unfamiliar place all the time.
Except when I'm in, me just coming to New York, I'm burning 40%, but I'm also like eating the best food in the world too. So like, the two kind of cancel each other out, I feel like.
Yeah. So I'm like
Yes. Those are my neighbors. My neighbors are all feral children.
Good. So I am very reluctantly the, like, welcoming lady.
All right. So, let's go back. It is your episode of the 1000 Comics. That's my buzzer again going. Yeah, this is great. This is great. I didn't realize how conducive.
If you're gonna switch the setting of the podcast, it's appropriate that we have the sounds of New York in the background. So
ambient sound. That's what they say they wanted podcasts now, right?
They're recording a podcast too. Where they're ambient
sound.
Yeah,
they're vlogging. We're losers. I got 10,000 kids in Korea watching.
Feral kids at TikTok on TikTok.com.
Yeah.
All right. So take me back to your childhood in Russia.
Yeah. What do you want?
Just anything. What was your earliest memory?
I think I need to mention that I'm really high. I think.
Do you want me to throw on the AC? It's like.
No, that won't help me at all.
No.
How would that...
I don't know. You just look like.
Sometimes cool air can be a nice shock to the system.
No, it's okay.
Do you want us to get too high too? So this is a better dynamic. Because I can get uncomfortably high.
I'm okay with that. Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
Okay, my childhood in Russia. So the thing that I think I'm just now starting to realize a lot of people don't know how to put together, is that I grew up in Russia in the 90s.
Right.
Which is like getting to know a person when they're like in the worst time of their life.
Right.
It's really not the same as like who that person really is.
Well, you feel like you'll be able to identify with the kids that are growing up now, like kids that are born in the pandemic.
It's nothing like that at all.
Okay.
It's like a difference of like a scale of 1 to 10 on a scale of 10.
Okay.
So it's really this is a new joke that I'm working on. Okay, I can't figure this shit out.
Yeah.
This is a new joke that I'm working on. Is I think I'm like really. It's easy for me to relate with my grandmother because she grew up in World War II,
right?
Which was even so much more than I think what my experience was in the 90s. But it's like, it's
yeah. Well,
a lot of death, a lot of bombings.
Yeah.
But as a kid, you don't really think about that stuff because I was like very insulated in my family and their community.
But that was like a thing with my family. My grandfather, fought World War II. Both my grandparents, lived through the Great Depression. So it's like it was very important when we would go to our grandparents' house, never to complain about anything because.
Yeah, I think we should bring that back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also I'm aging into this conservative, like of exactly that type.
But you're almost like from watching your stage persona today, where you're running a liberal room, but but you have a conservative attitude on the mic. It's
I think
almost
that's
like
the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Is be in the liberal community, but be the part of it that pulls them right.
Yeah.
Because it's
kind of like being Steve Miller playing the Joker and then being like, I hate these goddamn hippies I'm performing.
I don't know what any of that is, so I'm going to take your word on it.
You don't know Steve Miller?
No.
Oh, okay.
I didn't grow up here. See, but even when I moved here, my parents don't know any of these references, so I didn't grow up on any of this stuff.
Okay.
So I have very limited.
You had to see
what was Russian entertainment pop culture like? Is there a pop culture?
Yes, because every society has a culture, and every culture has a pop.
Okay.
So
I don't understand the dynamics of pop culture. So, I feel like,
Well, it's the lowest common denominator. Yeah. The thing that everybody likes so much that it can become universal, but has to sacrifice a type of probing depth that would appeal to a smaller audience.
Right.
In order to be universal. So that's pop culture.
Yeah.
There was a lot of pop culture when I was growing up. As there is now.
What from the U.S. bleeds over into Russia, if anything, in terms of pop culture?
Well, it's a lot. So the entire stand-up comedy movement, which the way stand-up comedy is now in America, really started late 40s probably in the U.S.
Right.
And so this scene right now is 70-ish years old. In Russia, there was stand-up that wouldn't even be referred to as stand-up because it's not like modern stand-up. But there was the art form that I grew up with for sure of a person talking into a mic,
right.
Not doing characters, they did do characters, but not anything other than just a person at a mic. So it was technically stand-up.
No.
But the American stand-up came there maybe 10-ish years ago, and now is becoming...
Only 10 years ago.
Well, no, of course there was that before, but 10 years ago, you could turn on the TV, and on, the equivalent of NBC, CBS, these, major national channels,
right.
You would see a few stand-up programs.
Okay.
That are of the form of stream of consciousness,
right.
personal investigation, self-aware comedy, right? American type comedy. So that is, I don't know, maybe...
It makes me feel like you're saying, in the 90s, the only thing we had was Yakov Smirnoff.
No, that was not the 90s.
Or the 80s.
I believe he was here by then already.
Right? But I don't...
We didn't really have him anymore. You guys had him.
Was he popular in Russia before he was popular in the
I'm sure he was, but
US?
way before myself. Maybe, when my parents were little.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, we had a bunch of sketch shows, but you gotta realize like when a country has to rebuild its government,
right?
Everything else is kind of like
It all plays second fiddle. Like, yeah.
It's like we had a few sketch shows when the power was on.
Yeah.
Right.
And the sketch shows were like I think really funny. I don't know how to describe them. Very absurdist humor.
Can you remember like one specifically that you like?
Yeah, there's a sketch show that I watched that was two comedians, and they played every part, and there were usually like maybe 20 characters per show.
Really?
And they played every part. Yeah, and they would switch off like playing a man and a woman. They often played like a married
couple. What was that called? Who were they?
Oh my god, it was something like Broken Windows.
Yeah.
Something like that. Well, the one of the guys is now like a huge mega star, but didn't used to be.
Right.
So like the sketches they would do would just be like like an old married couple, like living in this apartment, and like shit breaks and they're poor, and the guy wants to sleep with other women, and the woman is bitter. Like, boom, that's the show.
Classic.
But that's like almost ahead of its time in a way. Like,
no, that's universal. Every culture has jokes about old married couples and like the man wanting to cheat and the woman being bitter.
That's just a human condition.
I guess. I don't know what fucking sitcom is the guy looking to cheat on his wife?
Dude, the chick chasing the guy with the rolling pin because he's chasing pussy is as old as.
Oh, okay, like Andy Capp. I guess I could see that's. But it's like it's not like you see like fucking Ralph Cramden going.
Well, because you're thinking
fucking somebody.
You know what I mean?
Right, like boomer humor, like. Boy, I'm glad this chick is here.
Yeah.
That's such a dumb.
That's good.
But, you know what I'm saying? It's that same format of this is something that's been said to me by, this is like gonna sound awful out of context, but a boomer type, right? Like when I was a teenager, you know what? I'd have to explain the whole dynamic of like Russian dating.
Go ahead.
The difference in
I'm all
ages.
Ears. Yeah.
But like boomer humor, like a woman sits down on a bench and the guy goes, "Boy, I'd love to be that bench."
Right.
That's as old as time. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like how like fart jokes are as old as time. Like you would imagine that Jesus' apostles even had to make fart jokes.
Yeah, and I hope they did. Yeah.
It's okay. Tell me a little bit.
I'm not funny in Russian, by the way.
You're not funny in Russian?
No.
Is anybody? Sorry, that's hard.
But it's like in Russia, for some reason I'm like picturing like them speaking English on television in Russia in the stand-up, but that can't be true,
well,
right?
Not translate. You'd have to be funny in Russia in like a completely different context, right? You couldn't just take your jokes.
Yeah, it's different. It's a different sense of humor.
You'd have to literally write new jokes in Russian.
Exactly.
Of being in Russia.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've written one joke in Russian, but the Russian humor that I see on TV right now feels like maybe 20-year-old American humor.
Yeah.
It's on a delay. It feels.
That's
like.
A pattern, right?
Yeah.
With like Russian. Like pop culture, it's
definitely.
like 20 years behind American.
Definitely, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What was the first like American stand-up you were like really into?
Well, I started exploring stand-up in high school, and at that time, Cat Williams.
Really?
Nice.
And then when I got to college,
I wouldn't have guessed Cat Williams either. Why did he speak to you? Was the whole pimp culture aspect of it? What was it?
I mean, no, it's I don't know. Right after that was Louis C.K. in college.
Right.
But Cat Williams because.
Was it because Louis dated that Russian girl in that like 5-episode span?
I love that arc. Yeah.
That's way before. I got into him way before that.
Way before his show.
When he first when his specials went viral.
Yeah.
Cat Williams because.
Did you ever see his show he did before Louis? Lucky Louie?
Yeah.
Did you like that?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's Cat Williams because I wasn't really around a lot of like black communities. Even though my school was very like half and half, the town was literally divided in half. Where like half was pretty much upper class white kids, and the other half it wasn't really really poor, but it was like my family, like the immigrant family. Some black population, some like poorer white families. Anyways, so my school was like pretty segregated like that. That's just to say, I never really had like a personal connection with the black community. And I started watching Cat Williams. I think it's just because his stuff was on YouTube. Like I didn't have access to anything else.
Right.
And I could see that like, okay, his cultural values definitely different from mine. The way he talks, the way he dresses, like everything is different from me. But he made the room that he was in, like people would jump out of their seats.
Yeah.
And that is
as
like,
great black comics make their crowds do.
Yeah, which I didn't know.
Yeah.
Like that's not something you do in Russian culture.
Right.
Right? Like it was just like so unusual, and
but
just thought the jokes were so sharp.
One thing about like Russian morals and culture is it like, I don't know if this is ignorant to say because it's like the same side of the world. I'm thinking like, is it similar to like Asians in the fact that like showing emotion is like, whether it be sadness or like laughter, is kind of like not like really a thing? Like,
I don't think that's true in Russia or Asia.
No.
But
it's just like, I just feel like, I feel like that's why comedy clubs are not a part of the culture.
I think what you're trying to say is that they seem to you like a stoic people, right?
Is that ignorant?
That's my perception. That's my perception.
I don't know. I don't care. I couldn't tell you because I'm not the judge.
Okay.
But also, like, if we're talking about Russia, why wouldn't you be ignorant on like compared to me? I don't think ignorant is a bad thing. That's what I'm trying to say. Is like I don't like calling people out for like not knowing exactly how I grew up. You know what I mean? Like, you should be biased against Russia because you live in a country that's invested in 100 years of propaganda against Russia. Like, it would be impossible if you weren't.
Yeah, I mean, enemies for
Yeah.
so long.
Because it's the other big empire. Well,
Right.
It was. So, no, Russians are very, very emotional and very transparent with their emotions. We have a criticism of American people. It's the most classic example of why Americans smile so much, because we see that as very fake. So we really see America as like concealing their emotions by trying to show you something that you want to see.
Oh, but so that means fake. You guys think like the opposite almost. That like
so Russian people are like, if I'm unhappy, you're gonna know it. And that's why Russian people come off as very rude, especially like if you're in Moscow. I don't mean like individual people in New York. That's not what I'm talking about. But like if you were to go to Moscow and you tried to go to the grocery store, go to the hotel, go to the laundromat, you would feel like people are mad at you, and it's like
they're actually just living their lives. Honestly.
Yeah, they're just not gonna like.
Right.
I feel like I would not like do well in Russia just because the way I go about like my day and talking to people. I'm so jovial and everything. I don't know. I don't feel like that
that's okay.
come across well. No.
I don't know if you would like Russia or not, but just based off of what you said, a lot of Russian people are more than bubbly, jovial, happy, joking. Like, Russian people are quick to smile. It's just, what I was talking about is just like, don't ever fake a smile to make someone feel comfortable. That is like a big no-no.
Really?
Yeah, because for a lot of reasons. So, what I was going to say is like, Russia, the story with Russian humor, which I think Russians have a great sense of humor. I think they're very, very funny people.
Right.
But like the story with comedy clubs is, what role is a comedian allowed to play in society?
Right.
So it's like Russian humor and comedy has always been evolving in a setting like this, which is in a private house.
Right.
And also like, especially when I was growing up, we had never been to a restaurant. Of course I discovered stuff like McDonald's when we moved here, but like going out, being in a public space wasn't happening as much during the 90s, and every personal interaction would happen at someone's house. Come over my house and we'll hang out. Come to my summer home in the village and we'll hang out.
Right.
And that's just a way of keeping things very private.
Right.
For reasons that go back to the 50s and Soviet Russia. So like comedy.
It's weird in a way, like the comedy scene of New York right now, I feel like, is almost like underground in a way because of the pandemic.
Yeah. Ever since the pandemic, things have really become a lot more like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's not only the pandemic, but on top of the pandemic, the fact that we're coming into a very a time heavy with propaganda and a time heavy with like becoming a surveillance state. And so those two things, propaganda and surveillance state, is what happened in Russia that drove people to be funny behind closed doors only.
Right.
So I think, I think it's the pandemic on top of those things.
Mm. See, I don't know. Because Americans are so obsessed with freedom of speech. Like, not. I feel like freedom of speech isn't something Americans just love. It's something they're obsessed with. Where do you think Russians fall in the whole freedom of speech thing?
Well, I think there's two definitions for freedom.
Right.
And it matters a lot which one you're talking about, because one way to understand the word freedom is to say, I can do whatever I want, and I have no limitations in what I can do, therefore I'm free.
Right.
And the other way to understand freedom is to say, because I choose my actions and all my actions are of my own choice, I now bear the ultimate responsibility for everything that comes of them.
Right.
Not down to every little thing, but you see what I'm saying? The difference between, I do what I want and I have a responsibility because I do what I want.
Well, I feel like now more so than ever because, social media and everything, it's like people are being actually held accountable for things that they're saying nowadays. Like Kevin Hart not being able to host the Oscars because he
dropped out on his own. They were going to let him host it. I just want to fact check.
You think he was just scared of hosting?
Right. He could have hosted.
Or maybe a better example would be.
I still get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I just wanted to interject with that.
So as far as freedom of speech goes with Russian people, it's just not I just don't think freedom of speech is yes we have it or no we don't. Because there's also a huge cultural consideration to freedom of speech. Russian people, this is the way I was raised, is why would you go about discussing politics? That's the politician's job.
Right.
So that's I think that's less of a freedom of speech and more of I don't think Russian people are quick to hop on board with the idea that the entire populace.
Yeah, but I think I agree with that sentiment that discussing politics is the politicians. I feel like people talk about politics so much in the U.S. where it's at the end of the day, liberal, conservative. It's they're all just assholes that line their pockets with corporate money.
It's taken the place of religion in a big way.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
People need to fill that void.
So
it's a religion.
Freedom of speech, I think there's a cultural Russian value of being very honest. So, for example, not smiling when you don't genuinely feel it is an example of lying to Russian people.
Right.
So, I think that fits in with freedom of speech because, Russian people don't like to, betray what they call the Russian soul. But, in terms of
what's that though?
Well, there's this whole thing about the Russian soul. It's just there's no way to explain it. Either you get it or you don't is what they say. But it's just the essence of the Russian people.
Yeah.
They have an essence. They call it the Russian soul. And so that's one thing. But then freedom of speech, if you're talking about I can say anything I want at any time.
Yeah.
Well, you can say it, but if the entire community turns against you, then that's what's going to happen. You said it. You still said it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No. The thing with the Russian spirit, real quick though, is I feel like the Italians kind of have a similar thing where they go when somebody tells you good luck in Italy, they'll say al bocca de lupo, which means in the mouth of the wolf, which I just always found fascinating. You're safe in the mouth of a wolf.
Yeah.
I don't know. What were you going to say, Joe?
No, just to so you differentiate between these two definitions of freedom of speech, right? You know, between I'm going to say this because I can say this, and I'm going to say this with the knowledge of what the consequences of my words are going to be. And then you say, so then we have this idea of, well, like what's the domino effect of what I say? But is it the idea of freedom of speech and the value in it of allowing that person to be responsible for their words and not giving it to some governing entity that we only trust at the moment, and then just assume isn't going to, in 4 years, be somebody we can't stand, that we've now given this power and autonomy to decide what, because, like, I mean, the idea is if you say, I'm sorry to rant, but...
Like, I agree with you, because you know something that one thing I cannot stand is the hypocrisy of social media, and that the social media is so liberal that it will fucking take down, it's like, it's almost like this paradox of freedom of speech, where if like a black person, like if a black person says, and I've seen this happen before, like a black comic I know, she posts like something about saying that Black Lives Matter, doesn't donate money to black schools and like all this like stuff that like the Black Lives Matter should be doing but doesn't do, but because she's speaking against Black Lives Matter, the Facebook makes her take down her post. So now Facebook is taking away this black person's...
Facebook is telling her how to be black. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a paradox anymore because I think it's just a one-way. Like, I feel like I've seen freedom of speech in America really steadily, sometimes really sharply decline.
Right.
I don't think there's really any...
Is that alarming to you, given like what you were talking about before? Yeah.
I mean,
it's like your background. I mean, because like I can complain about it all day, but like I won't be the only white guy complaining. But like, would you say that?
It feels the same as like what it's like in a country that's leading up to an uprising. There's riots. There's really intense propaganda. Really intense policing of like people policing each other.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I never witnessed in New England that I think I talked to you about this earlier is the problem, the race problems in this country. You don't really see them in New England. Like,
sorry, but when you say we're in New England right now, so you mean Connecticut?
Connecticut.
Right?
Well, yeah. I mean Connecticut.
Yeah. New York is not in
New England. New York's not New England.
Well, I learned stuff on this podcast.
It's Connecticut and up.
This
Rhode Island, yeah.
There's a learning curve on this, but this is why you're just a side. One day when I die, you could.
I need to learn things, and you don't teach me.
You're talking about the Northeast. New York and Jersey are in the Northeast.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So, like I said,
but
it's New England because Boston. I'm sure there's race problems in Boston. So in Connecticut, you don't really see.
I'd like to challenge that.
Well, let me just put out my thought here first. Where it's like, since I've I've only been here for 4 days, I've seen fights break out in bars, and it'll always start with like a microaggression. Somebody's saying something passively racist, causing somebody else to get angered, and then the person that gets angered is the one that might get kicked out of the bar, and that's usually where like the fight happens. Where it's like in Connecticut, sometimes you will see a fight over race, but usually you only see it if like a white guy drops the N-bomb.
Right. So you're talking about like physical confrontations.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely racism of all other types in Connecticut for sure.
Yeah.
But I think I know what you mean. I don't think that's because there's more racism in New York. I think that's just because there's more people per square inch.
Yeah.
There's going to be more fights even if it's
people
over,
in each other's space.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're quicker. It's like you'd have more fights just if you had more people, but it's also just because New York is stressful and everyone's on top of each other. It's just a lot more stressful to live here.
Mm-hmm. Totally. All right. So because you showed me your website, or I definitely want you to plug this website for everybody.
Yeah, it's lifeofanya.com. Anya with a Y. Well, it's one of the things that it has is a list of the open mics happening in New York City, and I started it in the pandemic after a few other resources became no longer available, and it was just the only mics that I was listing was like, every single mic on there was illegal, and like because they were in public spaces during the pandemic,
Right.
And I got contacted by the cops a few times saying like, hey, you and your people need to stop.
Jeez.
Really?
Yeah. But that was it. That was the end of that interaction. Nothing, like, no one followed up from that. But there were a bunch of mics that were busted up by cops.
Really?
But, yeah, definitely.
Were you at any of them?
I was at a few, yeah.
Tell. This is what West Connecticut people want to hear, because none of our mics got busted up by cops.
Downfall of society stories.
Yeah.
Well, the first open mic that started happening in New York regularly in the pandemic was every day, 3 p.m.
Yep.
in Washington Square Park.
Okay.
Which is a very notorious stand-up place.
Yeah, this is where like Mark Norman, I heard him talking about on a podcast doing stand-up.
That's right, yeah, and like a whole bunch of other people. So that was like June of 2020.
Okay.
So March, April, everyone's indoors. Oh, I guess I got there in June. It started happening, I guess, in May. These like 2 comics were running it, but you got to be a little crazy to run that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So obviously.
But it's kind of like ballsy, kind of taking on the man. Like, my hero was always Lenny Bruce when I was a kid. And I was fascinated by him. So much to the point that Lenny Bruce's daughter tried to help me get sober for a while.
That's nice.
Tried to get her to do my podcast. She tried to get me sober.
That's nice.
And so I'm back to drinking, so that's neither here nor there. But Lenny Bruce, it's like him... fighting for freedom of speech performing during a pandemic is different.
Yes, because there are also lives at stake.
Yes.
And everyone said, come to this mic, wear your mask, everyone's going to be safe, we're going to have a lot of hand sanitizer. And people kind of tried to do that, but to be honest, nobody that went to an open mic in the pandemic was safe. There's no purpose to even lie about that. We didn't do that. Mm-hmm. We musicians stayed in lockdown.
Yeah.
Improvisers, actors, clowns, gymnasts stayed in lockdown.
Yeah.
Comedians were the only people that were like, we will perform or we will die.
What about mimes? Were mimes doing their thing?
No mimes. So
I want to make sure everyone's covered.
Basically, Louis C.K. came to one of these mics in Washington Square Park.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was masked up, and so nobody kind of knew who he was, but then he went on the mic, and people pieced it together, and it was this, like, incredible moment, because also a lot of people throughout the pandemic have moved out of New York City.
And you were there, and this is the guy...
I was not there when Louis came.
Oh,
it's really okay. And then that mic exploded in popularity because all the comedians that were still in lockdown were like, holy shit, comedy's back, guerrilla style. And so they started coming to that mic. That mic ended up being like 3 or 4 hours long every day. So I started coming, I went to a few of them, and the cops gave a lot of trouble to that mic just because a lot of the people in the neighborhood would complain, because comedians are not savory people.
Right.
And there's a lot of kids in that park too, which I've seen comedians pinpoint out.
Yes, it's not like they're doing their clean act up there.
No, I mean, not only are they not doing their clean act, but like a child is walking by and they're like, "Hey, don't grow up to be a faggot like me." You know what I'm saying? Like talking to the kids.
Such a particular voice.
Anyways,
that we all know.
so the cops would sometimes show up and be aggressive, but sometimes they would show up and be like, "Guys, we don't mind that you're here, but the community has asked that we like come." Anyways, so I was there one time when the cops came. It started raining, so we all had to fit under the arc.
Right.
So it was me and, like, by that time, a lot of comedians left, so it was me and, like, maybe 10 to 20 other people under the arc, and, like, 7 cops under the arc and we had a speaker. And, like, one by one, people start getting on the mic and antagonizing the cops. And this is also during the time of BLM protests.
Right.
And so, like, a lot of black comics are getting on the mic and just doing their act. And then, like, white comics would get on the mic and be like, "Hey, fuck you guys, fucking pigs, fucking coppers." And the black comics would be like, "Yo, we don't need that right now. Don't do that."
Would black comics get in the fights with the white comics that were doing that shit?
Not physical fights, no. Oh, I mean, I've seen physical fights break out at other times, but not like when the cops are there.
Yeah.
But the several times that I saw them, they were like the cops were just there, like very honest about what they were doing. Like, we have to be here. You obviously you guys are doing some shit, so like we're here. But they were laughing.
So some of them were broken up, but then it's like now it's at the point where it's like I don't know. Did you ever like when you were a kid go to the movie theater and there was always a cop at the movie theater, just in case any shit went down at the movie theater? No, it was an actual. The movie theater I grew up with had a cop at the movie theater.
Back then. I don't remember that back then.
Then like I ran a show outside of Brooklyn Museum, and like their security would come down and harass us and call the cops on us and stuff, and like it was a real boiling point because like every interaction with the cops would happen within like a 5-day span of some black person being shot, being in the national news. So, and my boyfriend is black. So when we were doing the show in front of Brooklyn Museum, I would tell him like, yeah, like maybe we should move half a block. And he'd be like, no, if they're going to call the cops on us, like let them try.
Yeah.
He was very screaming in the face of danger. And then, I mean, we also went on a 7-month tour of the South,
right,
when everything in New York had to shut down again because of the winter.
Yeah, so that second shutdown, you were like, fuck this, let's travel?
Yeah, so we bought a Volkswagen bus, and
my god, that's so fucking cool!
Yeah.
Yeah, we drove all around the South.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What was that adventure like?
I mean, it was a lot. It was really awesome. It was really long.
Did you film any of it?
Yeah, we filmed a lot of it. It's all on lifeofanya.com.
Awesome. Yeah.
And we got a dog, the dog that you met yesterday. We got her on the
road. That
road.
dog is beautiful, by the way. What's your dog's name?
Masha.
Masha. Oh my god.
You were living an independent film.
You could have brought your dog over here to the
I was going to, but I had a student before the mic.
Oh.
So
I was secretly hoping you were going to bring your dog here.
I was going to, but I had a French student on the Upper East Side. I mean, I tutor her in math.
Oh.
But she's
I was going to say, how many languages do you speak?
About 2 1/2 and 1/4.
Okay. And which languages specifically?
Well, I speak Russian and English, and I lived in France, so I speak
a little.
I speak pretty good French.
Okay.
And then I lived in Italy, so I understand Italian and I understand German.
I spent the summer in Italy, and I didn't really pick up much Italian.
Yeah.
Just out of
really
order.
The summer in Italy?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
When and why?
When I worked as an au pair for a while. This is not about me, bro. This is about.
You just threw it out. I wanted to. Don't bring it up.
You're just supposed to come in with the quips, Joe. I know you're new to the side.
I'll get the drinks.
No, not the drinks. The quips.
Can I have
the
another?
quips.
I'm gonna get it.
Just grab a couple more beers. Ben, you want another beer?
Sure.
How many beers we got left?
Enough for.
So wait. We were talking about pandemic. Yeah. So we were on the road for 7 months. We made it from New York to Key West. Thank you. And from Key West to Austin, Texas, then up to Nashville and back.
Key West to Austin, Texas. Did you hit when you were in Florida? Did you hit up the
Miami? We did Miami.
West Palm scene at all? That's where I used to live. I used to live in Del Rey and.
No, we did Miami and Fort Lauderdale. No, what's the one above Miami?
Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, we did Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and Hollywood.
Yeah.
But there weren't any open mics happening or anything. So when I say we did it, I mean we showed up. We knew a few local comics, and we had our own speaker system and microphone and sign and lights and everything.
Who's a couple people you know in Florida? I'm wondering if
well, actually, they were New Yorkers.
Oh, okay.
That all fled to Florida.
Okay, that makes more sense.
My friend Anya and Chris Schur was a New York comic.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Little shout out.
Yeah.
All right, so Key West, where to where again?
Key West, up around the Gulf Coast, so through Biloxi and Mobile and New Orleans to Austin, Texas.
What was
and we
what was the Big Easy
city.
like?
That's Austin.
Perform in, yeah. No, Big Easy. The Big Easy's New Orleans.
Oh, the Big Easy's New Orleans. Okay. It was fine. Everybody loves New Orleans, and it was hyped up to me. I thought it was fine, but I don't like being in a really depressing city, and it's like getting to
Like
be
it's below
depressing.
sea level here, and like
It's
the next time a
sinking,
hurricane,
yeah.
it's like every time a hurricane blows through, it's like it fucks the place
It just
up.
scares me. Yeah, it's like the city is physically deteriorating in a way that's really scary.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I do not ever need to be in a place where drifters congregate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Even though at that time I was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
But a whole lot of drugs, a whole lot of just grief and like sad people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't need
But
to...
some great food there, though, right?
Yes. Yes.
I'm all about the food.
I have such rose-colored
No, I
glasses
am.
when it comes to Louisiana.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I feel like I just need a time machine to go to the Louisiana I want to go to.
Yeah.
Specifically New Orleans.
Yeah.
All right. So, where did you go from there?
New Orleans to Austin, Texas.
Now, Austin, Texas. Was this when all the stars were going to Austin, Texas? Like
Yes.
you got Segura over there. You got
Yes.
all the big comics there.
I was there for the opening of the Creek and Cave. Have you ever been there?
No, but I've heard.
I've never been there. I've never been to the New York one, or obviously the Austin one. Again, I've never been to Texas.
The New York one is no more. So
Right.
I used to go to Creek and Cave a lot when I was also doing a lot of Connecticut. And it was really an iconic place. And they closed down in the pandemic, moved to Austin. At that time, we happened to be there, so we saw Ali Sadiq open for them.
Nice. Now it's weird because every New York comic I know it's like has sentimental attachments to Creek and the Cave, and why is that? What was like? Just give me one like instance that like that place was like great to you.
Well, it's a combination of everything a comic wants in a club and almost nothing that an audience member wants, which is what those are the clubs. That
That's what.
love.
Yeah.
So
I totally get that.
Most of the mics were free.
Right.
The room was so dingy and dark, and it wasn't even that dirty, but it was just like dark that everything was painted black.
The low
too.
ceilings where the joke bounces off the wall like back into the audience.
Oh my god, I bombed in that room so many times. But the appeal is that nobody's going to ask you to leave.
Right.
Which, as a comic, it's like you're always just being asked to leave.
Yeah.
And also like.
Which is why I think that show I
was-
Think You Should Leave is
Yes.
hysterical. I don't
Yes.
know. We were talking about that show earlier. I think it's like
agree.
it's a comic
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so at the same time as being this dingy, nobody wants this place, the one that's for us, it's also a place where you're very likely to meet a very big name. Because all the comics that get big, they still love that kind of thing.
Okay.
So I met a lot of people there. And also, like, it was open on New Year's.
Just
it was
the
always open on
first name
Christmas.
that comes to mind who you
let's
met
get a
there
name
that was
drop.
good.
Let's get a
Just
heavy
really
name
good
drop.
name drop. Heavy
Yeah.
name drop.
Most often, Judah Friedlander and Big J Okerson.
Big J Okerson.
Yeah,
I just
like,
saw
they
him
spent a lot of
I just
time
saw him
there.
yesterday at the stand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I didn't go up and talk to him because I don't know.
Yeah, what would you say?
Yeah.
You don't have
Like,
to
hey,
talk to him.
Big
You
J.
don't know
Oh,
him.
yeah, I don't know him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of want to try to ask him to be on the podcast, but I want to wait for the right moment. you
Yeah,
know?
I mean,
Yeah.
why not?
Yeah.
That's another great thing about the pandemic is if you had a show that you ran, you could ask almost any big name. Not that they would all say yes, because
Yeah.
like I reached out to a lot of people and they were like, "I'm quarantining,
Yeah.
fine," but
And-
like
and-
a lot of comics that were out of reach for me were
Exactly.
doing.
And then it started to become cool for like the big name guys like Maron and Conan O'Brien were
Yeah.
doing their podcasts remotely. So
Yeah.
suddenly it's okay for me to do my podcast remotely. And
Yeah.
I did get a few bigger names
Yeah.
on this show, which
Yeah.
was cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not even cool, but people would put up with it because they had to. Because if people don't want to necessarily hear you doing it that way just for the sake of how like it lands on the air.
Yeah.
But if there's no other choice, and even Conan's doing it, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
People are going to excuse
If
it.
Conan's doing it,
Yeah.
if Zoom quality is good enough for Conan O'Brien,
The
it's
bar,
good
the
enough.
bar
for
has
me.
moved, yeah.
Yeah. And then the Creek and Cave was always open on New Year's and Christmas and Thanksgiving. A lot of other places are not,
Yeah.
and a lot of comics in New York are very lonely people.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Comics are. It's like you want that club that treats you like family, and that sounds
Yeah.
like the one that did it.
And you kind of like, it's kind of like prickly too. Like it's family, but it's really like family in that like
Yeah.
it's not always comfortable.
Yeah.
It's not all like but it's a place that you'll never get kicked out of. And the other thing is like, for I think a lot of people, when you're single and ready to mingle, the Creek is just a great place to be.
Right.
When you're in a relationship, there's almost no point in going.
I mean, it's weird. It's like when you're in a relationship, it's like open mics. It's like you become so when you're in a relationship, it's like you become so much more selective with what you want to do. You know what I
Who you
mean?
sleep with
Oh,
too,
yeah.
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 All right, fair enough. How long have you been doing comedy?
About 5.5.
5.5 years. Yeah. Where was your first time on stage?
Bishop Lounge.
Bishop Lounge.
Yeah.
So tell me a bit about.
That's Northampton. Oh, all the Connecticut guys know.
Right. Well, they all know, but that's like I kind of want to get a little bit of your saga in here.
Well, I was in grad school at UMass.
Okay.
And then I started doing stand up at Bishop's. There's a lot in there, but I was in grad school.
Who was hosting Bishop's Lounge at the time?
It was Nick Caron and Laura Federico.
I have had Nick Caron on the show before.
Nice.
Yeah. And he actually, I got him on the show right after he lost Bishop's Lounge. He told the whole story of what happened.
Oh, good. Can you send me that episode?
I'll
please?
send you that episode. Sure.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
I love. I mean, at the time that I started comedy, Nick and Laura were still dating, so it was a while ago. Mm-hmm. And then, there was like that one UMass mic that kid ran, and Matt Woodland and I are pretty good friends, and he does Luthier's co-op.
Right.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Okay. How would you so you went from Northampton to New York, or how was that transition?
There was a year in between where I was living in Westchester.
Right.
So I was like inching up to New York, and that's a time when I went to Creek and Cave a lot, just because I had a car and it was the easiest to get to.
Okay.
But the transition, I mean, it's hard to. I don't know if it would have been harder to like start here and just be here, but the hardest part is just not being funny.
Right.
And I think that's hard anywhere.
Yeah.
So.
But you know something? It's like there is definitely. You say the hardest part is working on just being funny, but what a Northampton crowd finds funny versus what a Brooklyn crowd finds funny, there's a vast difference there.
That's very true. I don't know if everyone feels this way, and I don't know if my internal gauge is accurate, but I've been in a situation where I make a room laugh, and to me it kind of feels like, it kind of even feels like a betrayal. Like, that's the definition of hacky stuff, is like stuff that works, but it doesn't really feel real. Right. But then there's like stuff you say that makes the whole room laugh that feels like, oh, I'm speaking like straight from the gut right now, and it's just coming out perfectly. Mm-hmm. Right. And like that kind of thing, like, yeah, Northampton is an easier laugh, but when you have that feeling, you're doing, like, you're really doing whatever it is that you wanted to do. Right.
Well, I think there's funny. I think funny is funny because it's like I yearn to be like Carlin and Lenny Bruce and just speak my truth no matter what. But then it's like, at the end of the day, if I'm just being like silly like that of a Jim Gaffigan or something, just talk about food or whatever.
You can't talk about life every day.
Yeah. But to your point, there's a difference between going through the motions and like, you can put a table together that'll hold these bottles that we have here, but you could also take the time to make a table you really like. Both are going to be satisfactory, but you're saying you get more enjoyment out of the table you take your time making. So it's just not going through the motions. It's feeling like you nailed it and then being validated in that feeling. Right?
Feeling like whatever it is that I have to give, I found it.
Yep. Yeah. Like, and they like it.
Yeah. So, either way, coming to New York and being a very mediocre comic wherever from in the place where you're coming from, wherever it is a heartbreaking experience. And you have to go through that, I think.
Right.
Like those several years in New York when you're like realizing that not only are you extremely mediocre, but there's so many of you.
Well, I totally feel like I'm a big fish in a small pond in Connecticut,
Everyone is.
and then
All
I'm in
you
New York
fucking
here,
are.
and I'm a fucking nobody. You know, like
Yeah, and that's what scares people from moving here. But the thing is, like, that couldn't matter less
yeah,
because the difference between living in New York and living in other places for a comic is that here you have access to a shit ton of resources
right.
that don't exist anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
And you're never in competition with anyone else. You're in competition with yourself no matter where you are. But when you're in New York, you have access to those resources.
Well, yeah, you know what's it's weird. It's like you feel like you're competing with other comedians at times.
Yes,
but
that's
you're,
a lie.
But yeah,
But you do feel
your
like
biggest
it,
competition is yourself. Always 100%.
Yeah. Feeling like that was like some of the most miserable times that I've had in comedy is like in New York in the beginning, like when you first start dipping your toe into New York, like feeling like, oh, they have like 10 other girls that look like me, have the same jokes as me, like it, and like feeling like, okay, well, I need to be the best out of them. Like that just does not yield anything productive.
Yeah.
Ever. Yeah.
So true. Before we wrap up, I want to ask you, like, if you want to promote anything that, you know, if you want to, I don't know, what are, you know, where can we catch you? Where
crowd?
No, it's I'm starting to build a New York audience here now. Come on. This show's for everybody. It's on the internet.
All right, great.
World Wide Web in some of New York and Connecticut.
I mean, I have this website, lifeofanya.com, which I think has most of what I do on there. It's like this list of mics that I run. I don't run all the mics, but like the list is something that I'm proud of. If you're a comic and you want to come to New York, it's a really good resource because you
and the cops told you to shut it down one time.
Yeah.
It is awesome. I can't. I'm gonna use it.
Yeah, you're like a modern day Lenny Bruce.
So it's there's also a map on there, so you can see like physically in the city where they are, and they're color coded by day.
That's amazing.
That is like that's just something that I built that I like and I'm proud of, but it's like my really I want you to come see my comedy and like love me for me. So I have this open mic 6 days a week. If you ever want to come by, it's very low stakes. It's very comfortable, and you can like make fun of other people in your head while you're there. But really, it's like just a very like it's a comics room.
I can say I enjoyed it a lot.
And that is the tiny cupboard located
in Bushwick. Yeah, it's deep in the heart of Brooklyn. If you're coming with a car, I think it's pretty easy to get to.
Yeah.
And the parking might not be bad. If you're coming by train, it's off the J train.
And it's in the back of the building.
Yeah, I mean, it's you have to follow the instructions on the website. There's like a
pink
map
door.
to find there. Yeah, there's a pink door. And I do shows at various bars in Brooklyn. So just find my Instagram at Anya Jones. Jones with a 0. J0NES. ANYJ0NES.
I was picturing the Jones with a 0. I don't know. I'm a visual guy.
Yeah. And, if you want to see about how I drove around the country, it's on lifeofanya.com as well.
Awesome.
Very
I'm
cool.
going to look at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Joe Fox, you want to interject with anything?
No. Thanks for having me, man. This was fun. And honestly, like, I'm not just saying this to fucking be an ass kisser. It's fucking super cool you made that map because I'm going to use that.
Oh,
like,
good.
That's like what I use.
Yeah,
it's
my thing now too.
Yeah, I want to start coming up here like every other week for a few.
So glad you were one of my first guests on the podcast here while I'm staying here for the month because now I know exactly what to do and where to go.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Bad.
Did we miss anything?
I don't think so.
We missed the part where I Venmo you because I never Venmoed you for that.
I never Venmoed you. I didn't
actually.
I did?
I think you did.
No, I didn't.
No, you did. You Venmoed me today.
I did not Venmo.
You gave me cash yesterday. I can show you.
I gave you cash yesterday. I did not Venmo you today.
I think you did.
I know that because my Venmo doesn't work.
Someone else with your exact. Someone else with your name.
The other
Wait a
Matt.
second. Don't
There's
end the
another
podcast.
Matt on the
Don't-
mic tonight.
Don't end the podcast.
We
have to
gotta
find out.
figure this out.
Okay, all right.
Let her ride.
I owe you $2.
You cheap bastard.
Oh, you're Heath.
Yes.
The other Matthew.
That's
guy.
what I was saying, yeah.
'cause
You're
was
right.
right.
I'm very wrong.
All
and
right.
You were right.
See, I knew you had a problem with last names. It's because you don't like fucking lists, I'm telling you. Anyways, thank you for listening to the 1000 Comics Podcast. Peace.
Bye.